Okay, intros. How do people find intros? What do they say? What do they do? Hello. If you're a video game developer, or thinking of starting being a video game developer, or have already published a title on Steam as a video game developer, one of the things that has become a requirement recently is that you need to have your game compatible with Steam Deck, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's an amazing little device that you can play PC games on it anywhere. The point is, now this requirement of your games running on Steam Deck means that you have to make a few adjustments in order for it to run. One of the main things is that the Steam Deck is a Linux device, and while it does have a layer of compatibility with some Windows games, and think it actually, to its credit, it runs really well, not all games will work. And if you're a developer, you're going to want to make sure that your games do work on the Steam Deck, whether them being natively Linux or running through this compatibility layer called Proton. However, as some of you may notice, getting a Steam Deck is challenging due to a lot of shortages. So what Valve has proposed in order to achieve this is to basically create your own. But their tutorial on creating your own is a bit, let's say, lacking. Especially if you don't have experience with Linux and its pitfalls, or don't really know what you're doing. So I have gone ahead and created this video where it explains how to basically transform any computer into a Steam Deck machine. It runs by, runs with a controller, and runs the same, and I'd already, if I look through here, have one of my old games running through Proton's compatibility there. Work. I will kill you. As you can see, runs just fine. This is basically right now a glorified Steam Deck. Works exactly the same. There's no difference. It's just that, yeah, it's a laptop. I can push builds from my PC over here, where it has this, using this tool that Valve has provided. Click on a few buttons on here, and it goes straight onto this, so that it behaves exactly like a Steam Deck. So, a few things you're gonna need in order to get started. So you either need a Steam Deck or the following. You'll need, well, for both, you're gonna need a development computer where you're gonna be building your game or software or whatever it is you're building. You're gonna need a testing computer. So this is the Steam Deck, or the computer you're gonna be running the botched version of SteamOS on it. You're going to need a controller of some kind. So this is a requirement. I'm using a PS5 controller. You need both computers to be connected to the same network. So they need to both be on the same Wi-Fi, or if you have a fancier network setup, but they basically have to be in the same IP address family range. Usually you can just put them on the same Wi-Fi and you're fine. And you need a USB stick, because on your testing machine, that's not the Steam Deck, you're going to have to install a Linux operating system. The one that we're using is called Manjaro. This is the one recommended by Valve because it's very close to how SteamOS is. SteamOS is actually running a Linux called Arch Linux, but that one is very complicated to set up, and Manjaro is a lot easier to get working faster. Another consideration that we have is that the Steam Deck is a very light machine. It's nothing that's very powerful, so you need a computer that's going to be similarly in spec. Now, I wouldn't go breaking the bank or trying very hard to meet that requirement. The thing I have is a Intel i7 7th generation with a NVIDIA 1050M. Valve recommends a mini PC, and I'm going to put the link in the description to one that's identical to the specs they recommend. But it's basically a mini PC with a Ryzen 7 3750H processor that contains a Radeon RX Vega 10 onboard graphics card. They also recommend buying a little monitor that's 7 inches that has a resolution of 1280 by 800, and it runs at 60 Hz. That's actually kind of important in a sense, because that's the same specs that the Steam Deck has for its monitor. So if you want to ensure extra compatibility, it's recommended that you buy that monitor. I haven't. I'm just putting that at 1280 resolution by 800 at 60 Hz, and I'm considering it good enough because I'm not made of money. One final note, if your computer that you're using, like I am, has an NVIDIA graphics card, there are issues. NVIDIA does not open source its drivers, and while it has made some Linux drivers for its graphics cards, they are a little bit on the unstable side. I've had problems with this computer. I've actually put in this video all the problems I've had, as well as how to fix them. You may experience different problems. It is strongly advised you use an AMD graphics card, but that's not always what you have around, so hopefully you're not going to run into any other issues than the ones I've run into. And if you do run into the issues I have run into, hopefully this video will help you fix them. But other than that, let's get started. Hi, first things first, you're going to need, and I'm going to need, a USB stick for making the Manjaro bootable drive. So how we do that? We go to, where do we go to? Alright, manjaro.org/download. And we scroll to Plasma Desktop. It's very important that it's Plasma Desktop because Valve will not support any other of them. The other of them might work, but they say to use this one. So we're going to use this one. We leave it on full, and we click the download full image. Oh, we can download by torrent now. This wasn't there yesterday. Cool. But we're going to download the full image. And that started doing its thing. While that's happening, we're also going to go to rufus.ie/in. And this is the tool we need to basically transfer this ISO file that we're downloading over to our USB stick. And this guy. So we just go here to download and click that. And it's just going to download it. This is not install, it's just straight up you run it and it's good to go. So that's great. The image is still going to be downloading for a while. Let's just configure Rufus as much as we can for the time being. So take our USB stick, plug it in. And it detects it. Sorry, it detects it automatically. This is the problem with having a monitor that's today. So I clicked on this thing, which is we downloaded. This is the Rufus download. I clicked on it to start it, which is this app, and this is the Manjaro image that's being downloaded. And it's not done yet, so we wait. I'm done waiting. I already have it downloaded from previous, so it's fine. I'm just gonna cancel that. Cool. So once it's downloaded for you, in here, you will select the USB stick that you've plugged in. It should be automatically detected. That's all fine. Click select. Go to your downloads folder, whatever that may be, and click on the Manjaro KDE ISO thing to get it running. Open. You will probably get this. Click OK. And then you just click start. Warning! Everything will be deleted off your USB drive. Yes, everything will be deleted off your USB drive. You're gonna lose it. So make sure you made a backup first. And now we wait a while. Right, and now it's done writing the information to your USB stick, so you can just disconnect and put it on your other computer. Yeah.
Okay, now let's synchronize the video. I don't have a clapper. I apologize. Okay, that should do it. What we want to do is set up our our test environment. If you are building the Valve way approach of doing it, like using a mini PC and a little screen, you'd probably want to like put it on your desk, plug it in, turn it on, make sure it works. Connect your controller, make sure that gets power. Like this guy, I have this guy right here. So I'm gonna do that as well, actually. So I have the controller. I'm gonna USB stick, okay, cable, plug it into me machine, and turn it on. And let's see if it works. I mean, I know it works because otherwise I wouldn't be recording a video about how to set it up, you know, but the controller turned on for a second and now it's not. Oh no. Whoops. I broke Windows. Yay. Okay. Okay, so that took a little bit of a detour, but we're in Windows, so. Now that we have a working computer of some description, you don't necessarily have to be in Windows. We have a few considerations to make. So, if you are going to use this PC just for testing for SteamOS/Steam Deck and nothing else, then this section won't matter to you much. It's basically, you just put in the Manjaro USB stick in when it's ready and start the installation. However, if you are going to be using this lovely machine for also like dual booting into Windows or whatever, first what you're going to want to do is install Windows, which technically I've already done. And once you're done that, or if you already had it installed, you need to make sure there's enough space on the hard drive for Manjaro to be installed. So to do that, I'm going to show you real quick. Let me just zoom in a bit. There we go. So we're going to go into computer management. Can you see that clearly? I think you can. Let me make sure it's focused. So we go to computer management. And in here, we have disk management under storage. And what this little tool allows us to do is it allows us to change, if your Windows partition takes up the whole hard drive, it allows us to change the size of that partition. So you can make some space for Manjaro. So we're going to go right click on the partition. I'm using my C drive. If you have multiple, you could just delete the partition, or if you have just the C drive, you're going to want to shrink it like I'm doing right now. So you select shrink volume. It takes a few seconds for it to decide how much free space you have. TikTok windows. And as you can see, this window is a little bit confusing, but what it's basically saying is that you have let's see if I can zoom this a little bit more. There we go. So it says you have 132 gigabytes or 137,000 megabytes of free space. Do you want to shrink it so that all that free space is no longer part of the partition? And we say no, we only want to generate about 50,000 megabytes or 50 gigabytes of space. Now, depending on the size of the games you're testing, maybe you want to give it a bit more free space. If you have like a game that's, I don't know, tens of gigabytes in size, then you might want more space on this. However, for my purposes and for my somewhat reasonably small games, 50 gigabytes is enough. And then you click shrink. And if I zoom out, this takes a minute. Boom. We have ourselves some free space. We don't need to do anything else. Everything else now is done through the Manjaro installation. So, once your USB stick is ready with Manjaro on it, you're gonna want to plug it into your computer, like so. There we go. Restart your PC. And as soon as it gets to the booting sequence, you're going to want to interrupt it to get to your boot options or your BIOS. Really, Windows? Not the time. So for me, on this Dell to get into the BIOS, I have to tap the delete button when it's booting up, if I will boot it up correctly. I have to tap the delete button, and then so what I did was, because I have to do it kind of fast, is tap the delete button and then F2 to get into the BIOS. And in the BIOS, I select boot sequence, and I have this Wavy Kingston Data Traveler, which is my little USB stick here. Not this one. This one's the Windows USB stick. This is the Manjaro USB stick. I take that and I move it all the way up, so it's the first boot device in the sequence. And then I hit apply, and OK. And then I hit exit. And now the computer is going to restart and boot off straight off of the USB stick. Et voila. This is the USB stick bootloader. It basically allows you to run Manjaro off the USB stick to begin with. We will not be doing that permanently. This is just for the installation purposes. It's how it's done. There's a few options here. We're not going to care much about all of them. The only thing important here is that you select boot with proprietary drivers. I am running a machine that contains an NVIDIA graphics card. NVIDIA is notorious for not providing any open source information to the community in order to bake their own drivers. So the open source drivers for NVIDIA are actually a best guess made by developers to try and build their own drivers. However, if you select to boot with proprietary drivers, it will boot up with the NVIDIA made drivers for Linux. They can be unstable, but they are a bit more stable than the open source ones. And the open source ones are missing some very important features that you will probably need when doing game development. So I always go with proprietary drivers. If you are running something with a AMD video card or an Intel one, maybe this would be more appropriate. I don't know for sure. I'd just say stick with proprietary for now, because you're not doing any open source stuff. You are trying to build a Steam Deck. Okay, we are now in Manjaro. Perfect. First step done. Now, what we want to do is we want to first and foremost connect to the internet. Why am I not seeing internet? Why? Excuse me. Alright, we put it into Manjaro. Yay! Step 1, connect to the internet, because we need the internet. Why do we need the internet? Because this thing downloads stuff once it's installing. So first of all, let's connect. You click on this Wi-Fi button here at the bottom right. It's very Windows-like. And you select yourself a Wi-Fi network. I'll just go with Blackjack, because Blackjack's cool. Type in the password. And connect. Network connected. Cool. That was easy. Nice. Step 2, install Manjaro. Double click on this icon here. And this is the installation helper. It's pretty straightforward. The first few steps are actually very straightforward. It's just a matter of filling in the information, and that's for selecting the language. I go with British because that's where I live. Time zone, I go with London because that's where I live. Keyboard, I use UK because that's where I live. Wait, this is the first important bit. We are going with an installation with Windows side by side, so we can boot into either Windows or Linux, in my case anyway. If you want to go with just erase everything, I'm only using this machine as a Steam Deck, you click the erase disk, and that will just nuke everything, and you don't have to worry about anything. But if you're like me and want to use Windows alongside Linux and follow the step earlier with using Computer Manager to make some space, what you're going to do is you want to click replace a partition. It does the spitty spatty blah blah blah. And then in here, click the empty space. This will tell it that you want to use the empty space to create a partition for Linux and boot off of that. And then just click next. Type in some details, like what's your name? What's your computer's name? Steam Deck. Password. I would choose something very secure, ZXCVBN, because security is important, especially on a machine that doesn't do anything apart from test your games. But then again, maybe you are more security conscious than me and will be, I don't know. Put in a strong password if you need it, or don't if you don't need it. I don't need it, so I'm fine with that. Then you want to tick login automatically without asking for the password, because otherwise it's just going to keep asking you every time you log in. but even if it goes to sleep, it's gonna ask you anyway, so it's not really that much of a time saver. And then use the same password for the administrator account. Again, if you're security conscious, use proper passwords. If you're like me and this is a throwaway machine for testing, that's fine. Next. And that is our survey filled up. Install. Yes, please. And now, away it goes. Go make yourself a coffee, a tea, I don't know, beverage of some description. And I'll catch you in a bit, because this is going to take some time. Okay, the installation's finished. And I've had myself a lot of coffee. So, now we continue. Click restart now, after the installation has completed, and then click done. And you're going to want to time this a little bit right. As soon as the screen goes blank from restarting, you're going to want to remove your USB stick so it doesn't start again from the USB stick. So, right now, clack. Down it goes. Booting. Hey, this is it. So this is now your new bootloader installed on your computer, and you can go, if you like me and have Windows as well, it tells you can go to Manjaro Linux, or you can go to Windows Boot Manager and then go into Linux. There's an advanced options, and for people with NVIDIA cards, we're gonna be talking about that. Actually, this is a good time to be talking about that. So, if you're like me and are using an NVIDIA card, you will find that it has a tendency to freeze up. It's because the NVIDIA drivers have some compatibility issues with newer versions of the Linux kernel. This is currently running 5.15, if I'm not mistaken. And it will sometimes freeze up, especially in the middle of a game. It will sometimes only freeze up just because the laptop is booting. So that needs to be fixed. A lot of this depends a lot on luck. So you can hit Manjaro Linux and it will sometimes start up and it'll be great, or it's going to freeze up. And if it freezes up constantly and you can't boot in, what you're going to want to do is go into advanced options here. Let me zoom in that. So go into advanced options here, and then select this fallback option. This usually starts, I've seen this froze up a few times too, but this usually has a much bigger chance of starting up. Right now, I'm just gonna try and start up with a regular one. Let's see if it's willing. It is. So, got lucky this time. After you boot in, first step, update everything. So you click on this little icon here, and obviously if you're not running NVIDIA, you need to do this anyway. So click that, and then updates, click ignore all. I'm kidding, no, click apply. You'll see for me it's 2.1 gigabytes, and that's gonna take a while as well. Remember the password from earlier? You're gonna be typing that in a lot. So I hope it's something memorable. And now it tells us what they're going to remove, what it's going to install, etc., etc. Click apply. And we wait. Again. More coffee! Well, the updates are installing. There are two things we can do to make our lives a little bit easier. So, one of them is if you press the start button on your key. Oh, it doesn't actually? No, it does. Gives the start button on your keyboard, or it's this button if you don't have a start button for some reason. You're gonna want to type in here console, get the console, and then you want to right click that and you want to add it to your desktop. And the reason you want to do this is because you're going to be using the console a fairly significant amount. It's Linux, what can you do? The other thing you want to do is you want to type in Steam. Haha, you want to right click that and add that to desktop. Steam comes pre-installed on Manjaro, which I think is really nice, and basically removes some extra setup from us. Now, I wouldn't run it just yet, I'd wait for the updates to finish, but now that you have them on your desktop, they're just easier to access overall. Oh, and in case you're wondering why my update screen looks a little different than yours, all you have to do is when you're... it's done updating. Did not expect that. Okay. Well, I guess congratulations, the updates are done. So now we just need to click the restart button. Okay, we're booted back up. Updates have been done. This is not crying about updates anymore. This next section is just for the NVIDIA users that are having freeze-up issues, like I usually do. If you're not one of these people, if you're running an AMD setup or an Intel setup, or you don't have the issues at all, even if you're an NVIDIA user, do not do this, because why fix something that's not broken? Right, follow along. What you want to do is you want to go to this start and then type kernel, and you'll see this kernel option. Click on that and you'll pop up this window. This basically allows you to pick what kernel you'd like to install and use, because in Linux you can basically use whatever kernel you want. For our purposes, the last stable kernel that didn't have issues with NVIDIA drivers was 5.4, as far as I could find on the internet. Sometimes 5.4 freezes on me as well, but not anywhere near as often. So what you want to do is you find 5.4 and click install. Yes. Type in the password. Okay, that's doing its thing. Window a bit lower. This usually doesn't take too long. And that's done. We'll close this window. Now it appears installed next to us. What you're gonna wanna do is also remove the version that you're currently running. This is because otherwise it will automatically boot up into this version and not this version. There is a way to, in boot up, when you go to the advanced menu, to make it boot up in whichever version you want, but I just tend to remove the one that's causing me problems anyway. So just remove, hit yes, type in password, always, and then diggity. Always click show details. You see text scroll by. Let's zoom this back out. That was the click. And then you close this window and restart. If you see here in advanced options, you will see that it's only 5.4 instead of 5.15, or what your version was prior. You always click escape to go back and then just boot in normally. It should work fine. Magnificent. Okay, it's time to actually start configuring it to turn it into a Steam Deck. The first thing you want to do when after installing and updating is you want to set it to the correct resolution. I mean, by default, it's going to go to your max display resolution, which is the correct resolution. However, the Steam Deck runs at 1280 by 800, and that's what your games are supposed to run at as well. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to change your resolution by right-clicking on the desktop anywhere. Configure display settings, and then here just select 1280 by 800 and click apply. Done. That's very straightforward. We can close that out as well, and now let's start Steam for the first time. So double click. Okay, that took a lot longer than I expected. Okay, now we log into our Steam account. Okay, now I'm logged into Steam. It's my account, nothing too fancy. Once logged into Steam, and obviously everything is working, and your account is here, you are gonna want to turn on Proton compatibility. This is the thing that allows the Steam Deck to basically run Windows games on Linux OSs. it's been around for a while. I find that it works really well. So what you want to do is, instead of talking nonsense, let me show you. You click on Steam, you click on settings, you click on Steam Play, and then it has it enabled for support the titles, but what you're going to want to do is enable Steam Play for all titles and leave Proton Experimental selected and click OK. It will ask you to restart, and you should. Marvelous. And now the very next step, oh, Jesus, come on, go away. The very next step is to download a game that would use Proton to make sure that Proton is installed and working correctly. I use my own game vector because it's a Windows binary. It's made to run in Proton and it works fairly well, and it's free and lightweight, so it shouldn't take too long to install. I'll just type vector free. Woo. Come on. Play, sure, why not? No. Okay. Library. Vector. This computer install. Okay. So as you can see, it downloads free items because the free items that it's downloading are Steam Linux Runtime, Soldier. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's needed for Linux compatibility, and Proton, which is the thing that allows you to run Windows games in Linux. And we'll just let it do its thing.
One eternity later.
And finally, it's installed. If you want to get like a full Steam Deck experience, what you're gonna want to do also is, well, first of all, you have to have a controller connected because the Steam Deck does not use mouse and keyboard, so you need to have this connected to your development machine. But also what you want to do to make it a bit more authentic is to turn on big picture mode in Steam. And then just go to your library, select your game, and hit play. First time is gonna do this shader processing bit, which just takes a little bit, but it's needed. And boom, we are in game running with Proton. Quick test to make sure it works. Wee. And as you can see, it's smooth as butter, no issues at all. Everything works fine. And that's why I think the Steam Deck is going to be a really big competitor for Microsoft related products, because it just works and it works really well. Okay, enough about that. Let's quit this. We have a visitor. Hello, gato. What are you? Where are you going? Okay. Well, we will try and continue the video. So that's it. You can exit out of Steam Deck, out of the game. We know it works. Everything's great. So now we have a Steam Deck-like device. However, it's still not ready for development. There are some few extra steps that we need to do in order to be able to push new builds from our development machine onto our test machine, which is this guy, which I'm gonna go through now. But first, exit big picture mode, because we're gonna need to do more configuration. So now it's time to set up our development environment, because now we have a glorified Steam Deck and we want to get to a actual testing machine. There are a few steps that we need to do on our development machine and a few steps that we need to do on our testing machine. And let's start with the development machine, because that's shared across between this botched Steam Deck as well as the actual Steam Deck. So let me start recording my desktop. Excellent. The first thing we want to do is we want to open a browser window on our development machine. Just read anything. And go to this particular URL. That is steam //install //94370. Press enter and open Steam. This should install something on your development machine. Basically, we'll install the SteamOS Dev Kit client. You need that. Put it in your library somewhere, and that's gonna go ahead and do the installation, which should be fairly quick because it's not particularly big. And that's all you need to do for now on your development machine. Let's go now back to our testing machine. If you have an actual Steam Deck and not one of these, what you need to do now is it's going to Settings, System, and select Enable Developer Mode. Then in Settings Developer, select Pair New Host, and then feel free to skip the next part of the video up to where you need to connect to your development machine to your testing machine from your development machine. However, if you are not one of the lucky people that has a Steam Deck, and I'm not jealous of you at all, like at all, we have quite a few extra steps to do. Open up console, and we're gonna have to type in a few commands. So let me zoom this in so it makes it easier to read. First, we're gonna want to type sudo pacman -S yai. Enter. And it will ask you for your password. I should move this up so you can see. I typed in password, and now I just need to say yes to the proceed the installation, hit enter, and it's gonna install this yai. Yai is basically, let's call it a shortcut. It's more than a shortcut, but let's call it a shortcut to installing things you need within Linux. I find it very convenient to use, so if you feel the same way, that's fine, but for these instructions, we're gonna use it. So after that first command, then we're gonna type yai -S, capital S, patch. This is gonna install the patcher. It's something needed in order to get our work done. What we're trying to achieve is install Python 3.9, which is something needed by Steam in order to emulate the Steam Deck for developer mode specifically. After that, we want to type yai -S make. Yes, enter. And finally, yai-s Python 39. It's not Python 39, it's Python 3.9, but that's just the command. Enter. Yes, no, don't remove dependencies after installation. Diffs to show, none. We don't care about the differences, just do your thing. Import, yes, why? PGP keys need importing. Proceed with installation, yes. And now this is going to take a really long time. Depending on your internet speeds, on your performance of your machine, mine's not that particularly performant. It will take a while. So let it do its thing and we'll come back when it's done. The installation is done. On my machine, it took 3 minutes and 38 seconds. I don't know if that's necessarily visible though. On my machine, it took 3 minutes and 38 seconds. It might take less, it might take more, depending on your hardware's performance, but now Python 3.9 is installed. We can close the console, finally, and let's go back to 1x. What we're gonna wanna do now is open Firefox and go to Steam, semicolon, / install / 9355870. Hit enter, open in Steam, and it installs the SteamOS Dev Kit service. It's very small because most of the stuff is in Python. Click next, finish. Yeah, it's finished installing. And now we just need to go to our library, home, filter by installed locally, because we only care about the stuff that's already installed. And we have the SteamOS Dev Kit service, and just hit launch. Type in your password as always. Click remember so you don't have to type it in every time. And it doesn't work. Okay, so for me, something went wrong when after installing Python, and if I click launch on this, it just doesn't work. However, what I found, I've had this issue in the past, and I don't understand it, but what happens is if you go and then just type EIS Python 39 again, hit enter, clean build, type A and enter that yes, you want to do a clean build. Type N because you don't care about the differences to be shown. And basically reinstall Python again, which is gonna take another 3 minutes. So see you in 3 minutes. Okay, installed it again from clean, like I said. And now if I go and launch it like before, works fine. I do not know why. Mysterious are the ways of Linux. It works. We'll leave it like that. With the SteamOS DevKit service / SteamOS DevKit management tool / there is no consistent naming in Valve / running. Finally, what we want to do now is to actually push a build to our lovely little Steam Deck test machine thingy. If you're using an actual Steam Deck, you won't see this window. We just did the steps I talked about earlier and it's ready to go. Sure, we need the IP address of that machine, and they both need to be on the same network. Be it usually it's easiest to have them both on the same Wi-Fi. If you have multiple networks, I'll let you figure that out in your networking for yourself. But once they're connected on the same network, you need to find out the IP address of your testing machine. In Manjaro, this is very easy. You just click on this icon here, and then for your connected network, just click the arrow and details. And you will see it right here up top. Mine's 192.168.1.120. Easy. Once you have this IP address, you go back to your development machine. Let's see if I can forget. There we go. So you type in your IP address, click connect, and it connects to it, no problem. And yeah, that's it for connecting. It's fairly straightforward. Once you're connected, you need to start uploading your builds. So what you need to do is you have to have your builds into a folder. You basically go in Unity or whatever it is game dev engine you're using. You build your game as a Windows or Linux. I'm going to show you both on how to use both. And once you have that build ready, you go to title upload in this. Select default, so you have a clean empty configuration. You give it a name. I'm going to call mine Vector Elite. Last start with Windows 1, Windows. Don't use spaces, it does not like spaces. Then I like to go with File Explorer to where I actually have my build. So test build is my Windows one, it has an executable. Click up here, copy the path, paste it like that, very easy. Upload filtering, we don't care about this right now. It basically allows you to exclude files from being uploaded, not the case for me. What you do want to do is on clean upload, click delete remote files not present in local folder. So it will delete files off your test machine if they're no longer available in your dev machine under the build. So you don't have files being orphaned on your test machine for no reason. Start command, basically you need to tell it what executable to run. Mine's vectorelite.exe, so I'm just gonna copy that into here, easy peasy. Steam Play, if it's a Windows build, in my case it is, you will need to tick this on, otherwise it's not gonna run well. This basically tells it run it through Proton. If you don't run it through Proton, it's not gonna work on Linux. Straightforward. And then just click upload. You wait, of the please variety, and this takes a few minutes. Well, actually not a few minutes, it depends on how big your game is. If your game is like 20 gigabytes, it's gonna take a while because it uploads everything. If it's the first time around. If you're doing a subsequent build, it only uploads the changes, which makes it really quick. But yeah, on the first go, it's pretty bad. And this is very small, this is 20 megabytes. It probably is down to my Wi-Fi network not being great either, because I got the laptop on the 2.4 gigahertz one, should be on the 5 gigahertz one, but that's just nonsense to fill up the time. But yeah, we just wait for it to upload. Any day now. Done. No errors. Lovely. Back on our test machine. If you filter here by installed locally, you will see it's there. Now you can play it straight from here. What I like to do is actually turn on big picture mode again. Get the controller out. Ooh, controller. Because the Steam Deck, this is how the Steam Deck does run, and it has a controller. Well, the controller is built in, but you know. So go to library, go to installed, and you'll see it right here. DevKit game with the Vector Elite Windows. Click and click. And we fingers crossed it launches. Yeah. Come on. Come on. Please. Did it freeze? Certainly hope it didn't freeze. Nope, it's running. Whee! Oh yeah. One important thing to note. This is just purely related to my game. The controller works, as you see, it works, but doesn't work in game because I have to do something in Steam, which is go back to settings, controller settings, and turn on PlayStation configuration support. So it manages my PlayStation 5 controller through Steam, and then the game should run just fine. So now after doing that, if I go back to library, play, ta-ta-da, we wait for it to start, and voila, and controller works. Nice. Let me show you some sparks. Sparks. Sparky, 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 sparky. Okay, enough of that. Close out of that. And to do it for Windows, let's do it to do it for Linux, let's do the same thing. So I'm gonna save this config. If you click same config, it will appear in here. So now I'm gonna click default again, so we get an empty. I'm gonna call this one Vector Elite Linux. The local folder for it is this guy. Delete remote files not present in the local folder, as before. Startup command, this time it's vector.x86, woo, too much for it, underscore 64. Put that in there. You don't need Steam Play, so you just click upload. And we do the waiting again. I'm gonna finish my biscuit in the meanwhile, and my coffee. And for those wondering, this is like the third or fourth coffee. It takes a long time to make these tutorial videos, I will tell you. It's now, so you can probably, oh you can. My Linux machine says 9:39, so my test machine, it's actually 8:39, so that's off. I've been doing this at 5 a.m. So, if you find this video useful and want to repay my massive effort, to go ahead, like, subscribe, etc., etc. The more people see it, the more people subscribe to the channel, the happier it will make me. I am usually a happy person. I'm a happy person right now, watching this scroll by. Oh yeah, this video is sponsored by absolutely nobody. Excellent, we've uploaded it. It's done, it's finished, it's back to the test machine. So, big picture mode, because that's what we likes. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Okay, library installed, and ooh, Vector Elite Linux. Click. Okay. Click. This build is actually a bit more recent. I made some changes to it, so it looks a little different than the Windows one. And as you can see, this one's nice and full screen. And hopefully it will start as well. Yeah. So yeah, the ship's a bit different, and you can see this is much smoother. Whoa, unless I still need to figure out the loading a bit better, but Woo! It works. And it is running at 60 FPS, which is great. Scratch. Scratch. Blank. Wee. Let's go into the track. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This is how you get your game running on a Steam Deck so you can test it and build it and redeploy it and make it quick, etc, etc, etc. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, etc, etc. Bell icon, well, I don't know if the bell icon. I'm gonna try and make videos whenever I have something to share, so hitting the bell icon might be important if you actually want to follow up, because it's not gonna be often. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll check you out next time. Peace!